we can change the way that we look at life. We can change the way that we view our past or our traumas or our pains or who has hurt us or who we may have hurt or our shame or our guilt. We can change that.
Hello and welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy. And guys, today's going to be a great day. We have with us a really spectacular person. Her name is Sara Juliano, and over a decade of experience in dental hygiene. And she has made a major shift in her world and taken on some exciting new adventures that she's been dreaming of because of her passion of educating and bringing greater insight to her audience. And so she literally recently launched the Teeth Chatters podcast, which is amazing, if I do say so myself. It's phenomenal. And so we have Sara with us here today, and I cannot wait for you to meet her. Sara, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Taryn, for
Yay.
having me on your show today. It is such an honor. Thank you so much.
Oh, Sara, the honor's all mine. I'm so excited to introduce my audience to you because I'm just so inspired by you and by this journey you've taken. Share with us a little bit of your story from dental hygiene to now this exciting new venture as podcast host.
So, actually, I fell into this by accident. So, about 2 years ago, obviously, we know during the pandemic, dental professionals, we were kind of put on hold for a little while. And I had a lot of time to think. I had a lot of time to go inward and just say, okay, is this really what you want to do? Do you want to carry on with this career? Do you want to try something different? So I started thinking a lot and I said, you know what? Let's try and stay within the dental field because you love dentistry. But let's see if maybe you can get into a little bit of doing like sales and things like that. And I actually applied to a company to do dental marketing and dental sales. And when I got hired, the president of the company said, wait a minute, I think we're going to use you for education. Like you're a great people person, you're smiley, and they're like, and we also think we're going to start a podcast. I was like, excuse me. I did not expect this. I have never been in front of a camera or a microphone before. So I was completely nervous. And what I had done is I started just writing and researching and just picking specific topics, certain systemic health diseases and how they correlate to oral health. And I started writing and I was like, okay, I'd, grab someone from the office and say, okay, you want to be a guest on the show? Because we got to just see how this is going to go. And everyone would be like, okay, great. We'll do this one time, right? So I was so nervous. And I remember after we had recorded my very first podcast, and it was about 3 to 4 weeks after I had started working for the company, they're like, okay, this is good. Like, this was actually really good. Not bad for your first one. Let's do another one. So we are about 11 or 12 episodes in, which is great. I can't believe the following that I have already. And I am loving every minute of it because I get to meet so many wonderful people like yourself, Dr. MacCarthy, as well as other amazing dental professionals all over the country. And I've really just grown to love podcasting and doing this oral health education. I feel as if it just was meant to be. And then I just fell into this role naturally. And I think a big part of it is because I didn't overthink it. I just went with it, which is a struggle at times for me because I love to analyze things.
And you are not alone in that. I mean, I love that you recognize that as the driving force here for success because sometimes when we hold on to something too tightly, we strangle the success along the way.
We restrict ourselves more.
Mm, mm.
And I think it's easy to do, especially when you are going through life change or you're stepping out of your comfort zone, because I feel as if your first reaction is to say, "Oh my gosh, what if I fail at this? Or what if I can't do this? Or what if I'm not good at this?" And you start that negative cycle, right?
Yep.
We have all been there, and it's easy to put yourself into that, and I thought to myself, "No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna step out of that. I'm gonna take this risk, and I'm gonna ride this wave." And I truly believe and contribute a lot of this success because of that mindset.
Yeah. I believe it too. I mean, it comes across in your whole demeanor and your aura. Like you just exude confidence, Sarah. I
Oh,
love
boy.
it. I love it.
You're
But
so sweet.
I think you touched on something really important there, which is that self-judgment that first came in.
Yes.
And then you said, "You know what? I'm gonna push that aside and just let go of the outcome and the expectations and see where this takes me."
Yeah, and I think a lot of it was, I really think having all that time off,
Mm,
those few months, during COVID when, I was in isolation and we were, you know how it was, things were very quiet and peaceful. You had to do a lot of soul searching, I think. There wasn't too much else to do. And I just think I have lived so much of my life, in most of my adult life, in my comfort zone.
mm,
And I really said, "Sarah, if you are ever going to evolve, if you are ever going to get out of that comfort zone, now's the time. What do you have to lose? Nothing. All you could say is you tried and to see how it goes." And I've done a lot of soul searching. I've done a lot of inner work. I've done a lot of healing. And I think that is what has allowed this process to be so successful. If I had not done a lot of that inner work and inner healing, I may have actually lived in that state of fear
mm,
and really could have downward spiraled, and it may not be the success that it is today.
mm. It's so interesting because that's fear's job is to keep us safe and keep us sane. And
Yes,
that's the exact opposite of that evolutionary process of that growth and expansion.
it
And
is.
it's interesting because I know I've felt that myself too, Sarah, is that sometimes when the fear sets in, I get self-judgmental again.
Mhm.
And then I just remember that fear is just trying to keep me safe and remind myself that I actually am safe. You just said it so beautifully. I've got nothing to lose. We get this kind of an old idea or an old belief structure that something scary might happen beyond what we know, that the
Sure.
unknown is terrifying. And here you were saying the unknown was actually beautiful when you just allowed it to come forth.
And I feel like for so many years of my life, I've lived in that comfort zone
Mm,
of safety,
mm.
but in suffering.
Yes.
And I hate saying that. And because it was safe living in that state of suffering, it was safe because it was really all I knew.
It was familiar.
It was very familiar. And I, that's why I kind of want to get into more healing work and helping others, because once you get to that point where you can step outside of that
Mm,
and you can say, wow, this actually feels really good. This is what it feels like to go for a hike and see the beauty in everything that you see, because you start to see things differently. Your perspective on life changes, your perspective on yourself changes, your perspective on your career changes, your relationships. And it's amazing how enlightened you can become, and you start to say, what's next? What else can I do? Because I've faced all those fears and I'm so not afraid anymore.
that's
I really am
amazing.
not. I don't live in fear anymore. Um, when I lived so much of my life in that state, and it was so debilitating.
Hmm.
And I think once you get to this path that you're on of healing and doing that inner work, I want other people to feel as free as I feel.
Mm,
I want people to know that you can truly pull yourself through anything that you have gone through in your life.
mm. You know, right before we started the interview, Sarah and I were talking about this big career change for her. And you said to me that you feel like this has been a catalyst for
Mhm.
you to have the courage to make other changes in your life. Talk
Yes.
to me a little bit about that.
So I had recently, a few months ago, decided that I was going to sell my home that I have been comfortably, I say comfortably, living in for the last 21 years. I've raised my children in that home. I was, had my marriage in that home. And there are so many beautiful, loving memories. And I said, it's time. It's time for change. So I decided to put my house up on the market a few months ago, and it sold very quickly. And I'm actually moving out of my house, not my house anymore, in about a week. And it has been very emotional,
Mm,
um, but very exciting at the same time. And I never realized I never realized that when you sell a house, that you actually do go through the grieving process. So many
mm,
people have said that, but now I actually truly understand that because I have so many beautiful memories there. But I also know that those memories reside within me. They're always going to be there, and that the house is just a material object, and it's okay. And I've actually donated tons of stuff. I'm minimizing, and I'm learning to really just simplify my life because it feels right. It feels right to do that now.
wow. That's really cool. I'm so
Yeah.
glad you shared that because I think we don't talk enough about the grief of
Mhm.
change, the
Yeah,
grief that comes along with growth. I mean,
very much
positive,
so.
great, beautiful, intentional growth. There's a
Mhm.
little part of you that holds on and has some attachment, emotional attachment to the what used to be,
Mhm.
and that allowing ourselves to feel those feelings and not emotionally bypass those
Right.
feelings
Well, if you
allows us to walk through it.
absolutely, and I couldn't agree with that more because I remember, I had this beautiful meditation routine, uh, for the last couple of years, and I was in such this beautiful path and wave and just so centered, and I never felt better, and when I decided to put the house on the market, all of a sudden I started getting this
Mm,
anxiety and fear and doubt, and a lot of those old patterns
mm,
came right back up to the surface. And for probably a good month or 2, I would force myself to say, "No, you're gonna meditate through this. Nope, you're gonna" I'm a big runner, so I would say, "Nope, you're just gonna go run, and you're gonna work through this." And it actually started getting worse. And I had one of my friends come over, and he had said the most beautiful thing to me. He said, "Sarah, just feel it.
mm,
Just feel how you need to feel. Don't fight it." And I thought to myself, I was so concerned that I had worked so hard on myself and
mm,
I've gotten myself to this beautiful place that I was never gonna find that again because I felt like my those old patterns coming up. But I realized I needed to feel that way. I needed to start that grieving process, and it's okay.
mm,
So I just allowed to feel. If I need to cry, I cry. If I need to laugh, I laugh. If I need to be alone, I'm alone. If I need to surround myself with my friends, my tribe of people, I do. But I don't I'm not resisting the change. And I think I have that is one of the biggest lessons that I've ever learned in my entire life is to let go, which is a very hard thing to do, and to not hold on and resist it.
mm. Yeah. I think it's so it's so fascinating because even something like feeling feelings, if
Mhm.
we're not used to doing that, if we're used to doing what you had said about just pushing through, finding a practice, running, whatever it is that gives you strength and gives you focus,
Mhm.
if we are not used to feeling feelings, that change in and of itself is scary. Our
Very much.
comfort zone is to go for a run, not feel the feelings. Our
Sure.
comfort zone is to meditate through it, not feel the feelings.
Yeah.
And so even that was a new practice for you to be able
Yes.
to just sit with the feelings and allow for them. And I wonder what your perspective is, why we're so afraid to feel the feelings. What do you think it is?
Because it's because I truly feel, have been conditioned
Mm,
to not feel.
mm,
And we are conditioned to say, well, I need to be happy right now. I need to, this will make me happy, and I need this instant gratification. So if you're constantly numbing out and you're constantly looking outside of yourself and you're constantly saying, well, I can't be alone. It's too painful. I need to be in a relationship, or I need to buy a new car, or I need something external. But you realize after you have those things just how temporary they are. And I
yeah.
think for me, what I have learned is I fought it so much and I always looked outside of myself that for the first time a few years ago, I was like, no, I'm going to sit in this. I'm going to
Mm,
go right through this, and it's going to hurt and it's scary, but I don't want to feel this way anymore. I don't want to be uncomfortable anymore. I don't want to wake up feeling anxious and sad. But I think it's easier for people to live in that state than it is to go through it,
yeah.
because it's very, very, very painful. However, you get on the other side of it and you look back and you say, wow, I pulled myself through that. I'm stronger than I thought I was. What else can I do? If I could pull myself through that, what else can I pull myself through? What else is can I do? And you start expanding instead of restricting and constricting. You expand. And that's beautiful. But when you're in it, you don't see that. And when you're in it and you feel that way, it's so much safer.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're listening to this podcast, chances are you didn't get into business to be miserable. The problem is that people feel that if their business gets busier, if they start becoming more successful, that happiness will eventually set in. But it can actually get worse. This is why I created the Business of Happiness Prosperity Coaching. In this one-on-one coaching, we look at how to redefine success on your terms and re-find the joy and the passion in your dream. Visit me at thebizofhappiness.com and become the happiest business owner you know. What do you think was the biggest fear that you used to have? What was it that you overcame in terms of fear?
I'm not gonna get emotional.
Oh.
Um, Rejection.
Mm,
I never felt good enough. Um, and I always felt my biggest fear was rejection, of being rejected in every aspect of my life, not just relationships, but I could never be a good enough mother or a good enough partner or a good enough friend. But I always would go above and beyond to the extreme to people please so that they wouldn't leave me.
mm,
And I realized the more I gave of myself to everyone else, the less I knew who I was. And the more empty I became, to the point where I was so depleted that I didn't have a choice to start taking care of me. And, um, I have learned that to get my self-esteem back, to learn to say no when I need to say no. I've learned how to radically take care of myself, um, and it's okay if I'm rejected.
Mm.
And that honestly was my absolute biggest fear. And I will share something very, very personal here with you. I had a brother who died when he was 14, and I was 12. And it was very sudden. He had died of an aortic aneurysm, and there were no warning signs. This was over 30 years ago. And he was my best friend. We were very close. We were 2 years apart. And I watched him die. And for me, as a young child, I took that as, well, he left me.
Mm.
He's gone. He left me. Why did he leave me? And I do truly believe that that was my first form of rejection. And it was very difficult for me. So I think what I started to do would try to hold on to every single person that came into my life so that they didn't leave. And I would expend every ounce of my being to make sure that they saw me, that they loved me, that I was good enough to stay in my life. And I think that was a conditioned belief that I had from that moment on. And I was a young child and I didn't know any better. I didn't know any differently. So I
Mhm.
do believe that that's where a lot of that came from.
Hmm. Thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
It's so interesting that in fearing that rejection, you were almost rejecting yourself.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Because we remember we are mirrors. We are our own mirror, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
sometimes I think that's hard to grasp when you think about that, but it is true because your battles are your own. Your
Yep.
journey is your own. Your perception on reality is your own. But it's hard to understand that, and I think once you do start to understand that and see that, it's like, "Oh, yeah, that's why I feel this way." And
Yeah.
it's right? So you can come back to it once you get to that other side and you realize that and you're like, "Oh, that's why I'm feeling rejected
Yeah.
because of this." And it's your own conditioned belief and it's your own perspective and it's so deep
Yeah.
because it is embedded in you down to your soul.
Yeah.
And it's such a comfortable place because it's really all you know. So to change your perspective and to see things differently is so foreign,
So
right?
foreign.
It's
So
so
foreign. But
foreign.
But as you said, like, anytime we try something new and we see it on the other end, it gives us this superhuman power that we were denying ourselves before. New eyes.
New eyes, and I think it was Wayne Dyer who quoted it. It was when you change the way you look at things your life will ultimately change or your perspective will change. And it is all on the perception. And I used to say, my brother's name was Willie. I used to say, well, Willie left me. And this is why I'm the way that I am, right? And this is what happened to me. And this is why I do this. And this is why this. And I always came back to that, came back to that. And I lived in that victim mindset and just thought, well, I'm like this because he died and I was traumatized as a young child. And I have learned, and it's been a very hard lesson, that life is happening for me, not to me. I am not a victim. I was, but I'm not. And everything that's happened in my life has gotten me to this point of strength that I'm at right now. I wouldn't be as strong in my life if I hadn't gone through the traumas and the pains, um, to get me to where I am today, which is beautiful for me. And if I I look in the mirror and I see I'm beautiful, and I'm not talking about physical beauty. I can look at myself and say, "Sarah, I love you." I haven't been able to do that for 40 some odd years. You know? So it's just and it's okay. It's okay. What has happened, and it's okay.
That's so beautiful, Sarah. Oh, so I just I'm so grateful to you for sharing this story with us because I think so many of us can see ourselves in your story,
Mhm.
in stories we've been telling ourselves about why we are the way we are or
Yep.
why our lives are the way we are.
Yeah.
And in sharing your story, you're showing us that radical personal responsibility we have for our own reality.
Yeah, I actually started writing this. I'm writing a memoir, and I started writing it about 2 years ago, and it's been It's very emotional because it's a memoir, and I'm writing about my past and my life and my experiences. So I'll, type up a chapter
Mm,
and then go cry because it's just very emotional.
yeah.
But I truly believe that if we can share our stories, because every single person has a story, every one of us, and it's our own personal truth,
Mm,
it's our own story, but we can rewrite it, we can change it. We can change the way that we look at life. We can change the way that we view our past or our traumas or our pains or
mm,
who has hurt us or who we may have hurt or our shame or our guilt. We can change that.
mm,
We can do that. And I do believe that the best way to start is by sharing your story
mm.
and not being afraid to. I'm not afraid to talk about my journey and the pain that comes along with it. I'm not afraid. I have nothing to hide, and I'm not afraid of my truth.
Wow. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So what does the next chapter look like for you?
It's interesting. I've gotten to this point in my life where I don't know. And what's funny? I'm not even scared. I have no idea. I have no idea where my path is going to go. I don't have any long-term plans right now. Right now, I'm just going to be living in this beautiful, gorgeous apartment in the city, which is about a half hour from where I'm living now, and try a little bit of a different life and see where it takes me. See where life takes me. And for the first time, like I said in my life, I don't have. I'm just gonna allowing it to flow.
Wow. Very
And
cool.
hopefully my podcast will continue to grow, and hopefully by, having guests on like yourself and other professionals, sharing their truth, their story, I feel like I feel like for myself that that's probably the path I'm going to keep going down. I feel like my purpose in life is to share my story and to help others share theirs so that
Mm,
they can on their healing journey. I want everybody that I connect with, that I come across, to know that they are worthy of healing
mm,
and that they are worthy of going through it,
mm,
because everybody deserves peace. Everybody deserves happiness and inner freedom. And I want to share with people that it's possible, just like you do. I mean, you have so many wonderful guests on your show. And I think it's beautiful because I've watched you and your journey and how far you've come and transformed. And it's beautiful. And you're inspiring so many people to have that inner happiness and inner peace. And that is one thing that I will say, that's probably the direction I do really want to keep going, is just helping people, um, get on their healing journey.
Beautiful.
Mm,
You're doing it. You're
yeah,
doing it.
so are you.
So cool. Thank you. I think that the more there needs to be more stories told this way. I think you're absolutely right. I think we hear so many of the opposite and that we're inundated all the time with fear.
Well, and I also think too, it's so easy to turn on the TV, go
Mm,
on your phone, right? You know, and you see beautiful people, you see happy faces, you see perfect relationships, you see perfect families. And right away, it's a trigger. Well, how come I'm not happy?
right.
Well, how come I don't have that?
What's
Or how
wrong with me?
what's wrong with me, right?
Mm,
Well,
mm,
it's because I'm not good enough.
mm.
And there you go, down the rabbit hole. And I think we live in such an instant gratified culture that we want it now. And I think I want to share my story and say, hold up, take a break, take a breather, allow yourself this time to heal, go inward, let go of that external for a while because it will change your life.
Yeah.
That is what will change your life. So then when you do get on social media or you do turn the TV on, you're like, wow, that's great. That's a beautiful person. I'm
Yeah.
happy for that person. But guess what? I'm beautiful too.
Yes.
Right.
You know, I
And
love I love that you mentioned that about social media because I think there is a big stigma of people showing a part of their life that's not representative of the whole. And I've also always had this perspective of encouraging people to show the beautiful parts of their lives. Like, to me, that sounds fabulous. If you had that great day on the beach with your kids, let's live it up again. Share that beautiful moment. Enjoy and be grateful for that beautiful moment. And so I
yeah,
actually now with a different perspective get inspired by those things. Wow, her
right.
family does look great. But I think it's important what you were mentioning is understanding our deservancy of that happiness as well.
Yeah, in letting go of the judgment
The
and
judgment.
letting self-judgment and judgment of others and letting go of the comparison.
Yeah.
Because I think it's so easy to compare.
Yeah.
And once we start to compare ourselves to others, we start that self-judging.
Mhm.
And it's, well, how come I don't have this? Or how come I don't look like this? Or how come I'm this? And it's so easy to do. And I think we live in that world. And I do think that's where I say this takes work in order to really do that inner work and to go on that healing journey because you almost have to learn to um, kind of shut down from that for a while really in order because I think that's where you start to heal and change your perspective on things. And it takes time. It takes a lifetime,
Mm.
but you got to do the work. You have to do the work and happiness is an inner journey. You're never going to find it outside of yourself. And boy, did I learn that the hard way.
But also the beautiful way. I mean, that's what it took. Like you said earlier, it took those lessons along the way to learn that about yourself and that
Yeah.
inner strength.
And those
Mm.
lessons along the way and those pains along the way and those struggles along the way is what is your story.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
your story.
Mm.
And I've learned to change the way I speak to myself. I've learned to change my perspective on myself, which has completely changed my perspective
On life.
on life in general. It's completely changed my perspective on life because I see myself differently now.
Mm. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, Sarah, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing this story
You're
and
welcome.
thank you for having the courage to face your fears and to do the thing anyway because without that courage, we wouldn't have the benefit of the beautiful perspective that you're giving and
Thank you.
sharing and supporting. And
Thank you.
so please check Sarah out at the Teeth Chatters podcast. It is excellent. You will love it. She has good reason to be proud of the success that she's seeing. And,
Yeah.
Sarah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on the show. And I love watching your show, and I love being inspired by things. And every time I see you like on social media, I just see the most beautiful, the most beautiful, welcoming smile.
Oh, thank you,
And
Sarah.
it's you just have this sense of peace that you just carry with you. And I think it's lovely.
Well, right back at you, my love.
Thank
Right
you,
back at you.
sweetie. Thank you.
And thank you to all of you for joining us today. I know that you found great inspiration hearing Sarah's story. And, I think sharing this story with a friend, if you know of somebody who needs to hear this perspective, who needs this gift, please do so. Please share this episode and empower their day. And remember that when you feel great, that's when you can do good things in the world. Bye
Sweet.
bye.
Bye.